Hi there, I am Unicorn. August is the Women in Translation month, and there are a ton of events going on around that topic. For example, there is a Women in Translation Readathon coming up next week, hosted by Kinja Winchester, Jennifer at In There Literary Pun here, and Matthew Sharapa. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in that readathon, but I still want to contribute to this topic. So today I'm bringing you these videos about some women in translation recommendations. This recommendation will be a mixture of books that I have read and loved, and also the books I haven't read but want to get to. And sometimes I will recommend a certain book, but sometimes I will recommend an author as a whole. And also, by doing this recommendation, I won't include some books that I heard all the time on BookTube. By saying that, I mean Human Eggs, Vegetarian, and the Book of White by Han Kan, because I think even without my recommendation, you'll still read them. Since I'm the one on BookTube keep recommending people about Chinese literature, I thought this time we will begin with a lot of Japanese books. Something you may not know about me is that I'm a huge Japanese crime and mystery novel fan. So sometimes I got surprised to know that there are not many great Japanese crime and mystery novel has been translated into English, not to mention the ones by female author. But luckily, we have two books today that I found has been translated into English and they are pretty good. The first book I got here is called All She Was Worth by Miyuki Miyabi, translated by Alfred Birnbaum. This book was about a woman who vanished, but the detective found she was not the person she said she was. She may be the victim, but she may be the killer. And then there are two people claiming to be the same person. The original title of this book was called The Train, so what does that tell us? The second book here is called Murder at Mount Fuji by Suzuku Natsuki, and I cannot find the translator of this book. But this book has the classic mystery and murder crime settings, like a wealthy family, a locked place murder, a body, a killer, and a bunch of witnesses. But things may be not that easy. This book has a higher rating on a Chinese reading community than on Goodreads, so it made me wonder that maybe the translation of English was not that good. But the author was a well-established mystery writer, so I still think her book is worth checking out. The third book I got here is not a mystery novel, but it's a very delightful nonfiction. It is called Toto-chan, The Little Girl by the Window by Totsuku Kureyanagi and translated by Dorothy Bridle. This was a memoir of the author talking about when she was a child and she was too naughty to study in the normal school. So she was sent to a very special school where they have classes on buses, and also they are encouraged to explore every courses by themselves with fun, love, and freedom. I read this book years ago and I still love it now. I think it's a very good children's book, but also a great read for adult readers. Following, I have two books that I found recently. The first one is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata and translated by Ginny Tapley Takimori. Actually, I just finished this book yesterday and I love it so much. I think I found my favorite book of the year and also my favorite character of the year, if not of all time. This book is about a woman who never fits in her surroundings. She does not have a proper job after graduating college. She is not married. She is doing a temporary job at a local convenience store for 18 years and doing the same thing over and over again every day. I think this book is utterly wonderful and amazingly weird. The setting of the book reminds me of a friend of mine, and she said to me once that her dream job was to go to a burger factory and assembling burgers day after day after day. And it just reminds me a lot of the interactions I have with people sometimes, and you have to read it. It's so amazing. Moving on to my Chinese literature recommendations. I, of course, already have a lot of recommendations in my Chinese literature series videos. I'll link them down below, so if you want more, you know where to go. The first book I actually just recommended in my latest Chinese literature video, but I love the story so much I have to recommend it again here, and it's The Flower of War by Yan Geling, translated by Nikki Herman. This was a novel that inspired by a true event during the Second World War. It's called Nanjing Massacre. 13 students and a bunch of prostitutes are hiding in a Western church in Nanjing in order to escape the surge of Japanese army. And one day, the Japanese army came and asked for the students to rape them. So the prostitutes standing up and pretend to be the students in order to protect them. This is a very beautiful story and also a very heartbreaking one. And then I got a novella collection called Old Floating Cloud, 2 novellas by Can Xue, and translated by Ronald R. Jensen and Zhang Jian. This is 2 novellas. One of them is called Old Floating Cloud, and the other one is called Yellow Mud Street. They all have a very cruel settings, and for example, set in a world where people have no privacy at all, and everybody is obsessed with the idea of peeking others' lives. And Can Xue's books, sometimes called the 1984 in China, and especially the Old Floating Cloud. And then I got Notes of a Crocodile by Qiu Miaojin, translated by Bonnie Hui. This is a book talking about 7 queer people's life situation when they're in college. Because they're queer, they're like gay and lesbian and also bisexual, I believe, they're not that easy to be accepted by the society. Qiu Miaojin is a very well-known lesbian writer, and Notes of a Crocodile is one of her most popular books. And this book was actually recommended to me by a viewer of my channel when I first started BookTube. So I'm very grateful for that. And then I got a book called Norton Ghost by Sheng Keyi, translated by Shirley Brandt. This is a story about a small village girl. With the age of only 16, she left her village and went to a big city for living. And with all the loneliness she felt, she found a bunch of other girls who's also from northern part of China, and they form a very tight relationship with each other. This is a coming-of-age story and discusses the situation of smaller village girls in big cities. And then I have 2 Chinese female writers that I recommend a lot, like all of their books. And the first one, of course, being Eileen Chang. And thanks to Monsieur Shuefa, I think everybody on BookTube suddenly started to read Eileen Chang's book. I think Eileen Chang has the clearest vision for Shanghai during the Second World War period. And also, she had the greatest observation of people. And her characters are always thoroughly developed, and her writing was just purely beautiful. I have 3 of her books here. I recommend you to start with Have a Lifelong Romance, which is my favorite of hers. And also you can start with Love in the Fallen City. And I also have Last Caution here, which is also a great book. Another author I recommend here is called San Mao or Echo Chen. She does not have an English translation yet, so you may wonder why I'm still talking about her, because she has or she will have some translated book into Spanish. So if you can read Spanish, you are very lucky, because she is my favorite author of all the time. Not like one-off, she's the one. She didn't write a lot of stories or novels, but she's really good at essays and also prose. She traveled all around the world and stayed for a long time in the desert of Sahara. And this is a Chinese version of the story of Sahara, one of my favorite book of hers, and I carry it as the first book that I carried with me overseas. So this book has a very special place in my heart. Okay, so after all the books from East Asia, I still have a lot of recommendations from other parts of the world. The first one being The Lover by Marguerite Duras, translated by Barbara Bray. The book was set in Indochina, where Marguerite Duras grew up, and it is a heartbreaking story between 2 people, a young French girl and her Chinese lover. Being so young in her life, the French girl doesn't know if she loves her lover or not, and this is a lesson that she needs to learn for her entire lifetime. I enjoyed this book very much when I first read it. I think maybe because it's very atmospheric, and also the love in the book is very distant from the love that I know. And I have read other books by Marguerite Duras and I enjoy them as a whole, so she is also a writer that I recommend to check out like all of her books. The second here on this sub-list is also from France, and it is a non-fiction called The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, translated by P.M. Parsley, and this is a Chinese version translated by 政客鲁. So needless to say, this is a classic nonfiction that I think everybody, or at least every feminist, need to read. And it is an analysis of woman with the classic quote of one is not born, but rather becomes woman. And then I have a poet that I recommend. She is Wisława Szymborska. She has a lot of poetry collection. Off the top of my head, I would say Here and Miracle Fear. I read her poems about 5 years ago, and I documented my thought at that time as no matter how long life is, it is always too short to add anything in it. And I realized that it doesn't make any sense if you translated it into English. But anyway, my thought about her poem is it's really good and make me think of the shortness of life. And Szymborska actually won a lot of prizes, including the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1996. Following, I got a Norwegian book that I really want to get to. It is The Faster I Walk, the Smaller I Was by Yashki and his daughter Skomsvad, and translated by Carrie A. Pierce. This was about a woman who doesn't think she accomplished anything except longevity, so everybody she knew died before her. So afraid of dying alone, she decided to try to make a connection with the world, and then something happened. I think this book sounds absolutely intriguing, and also I really want to read more of Norwegian literature, so I'm really excited to go for it one day. Second to the left, I got a piece of classic nonfiction. It's The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, translated by B.M. Mouillard Doubleday. It was about when Anne was 13 years old, and she and her family needed to hide in an attic in order to escape the search from the Nazis. This was a brilliantly written book, and it really shows Anne's life, including the fear, the concern, and the love, and the afraid of dying. And I read that book when I was about Anne's age, and I was very much touched by it. And until today, the feelings of this book will come back to me every time I think about it. And lastly, I got here is a series from Italy. They are the Napoleon series. They are My Brilliant Friend, The Story of a New Name, Those Who Live and Those Who Stay, and also The Story of Lost Child. They are written by Anna Ferrani and translated by Anne Gosden. And they are a set of books that I acquired before I started BookTube because I heard nothing but good things about them. And 1.5 years later, they still stand on my shelf unread. So I really need to get into them someday. And that's all the books that I got for this Women in Translation recommendation. And also some of them are my TBRs. I think you can tell that my knowledge of books from countries besides East Asia and Europe is really limited. So please throw all your recommendations to me. I'm so eagerly to expand my reading horizon. And of course, thanks for watching. I hope you're happy reading. And see you next time. Bye!